So with no further ado, I think I'm going to get cracking. And to introduce you both briefly and to introduce this series, welcome to everybody who's here. Thank you very much for participating today. The title being When People Are Your DNA with Illumina and Amedisys. Emily, VP of Business Operations and Chief of Staff to the CEO of Illumina, where she works across the entire organization to ensure the continued transformation and success that has made Illumina the long-standing genomics industry leader that it is. And when we pass over to her in a second, she can explain to us what genomics is before we get into the detail of alumni, because I had to Google what that meant the first time I met you, so nobody should feel bad about that. Yvette Hansen, we're thrilled to have you with us, Director of Talent Acquisition at Amedisys. Yvette, I know that you're a member of the 80+ strong talent team who work at Amedisys, dedicated to building a positive and engaged team of caregivers who provide care to hundreds and thousands of people across the USA, a subject close to my heart with a 97-year-old grandma in a care home. So, Emily, I'd love you to just quickly give us a little intro in your own words and explain to us what genomics is.
Got it. Well, first, let me tell you about Illumina. We are a 20-year-old multinational company headquartered in California, and our technology is used in over 140 countries. So we make the instruments that do genomic sequencing. So you put in blood or saliva or plant materials, and we'll tell you what the DNA sequence is. And our machines and data are used in various ways. You can match cancer patients with the right therapies, diagnose babies with genetic diseases, assess the health of babies during pregnancy. We were used to sequence the first SARS-CoV-2 genomes. And even now, our technology is really tracking the virus in over 100 countries. And just to wrap it up, last year we saw, the largest mass vaccination campaign in history, and it was really powered by, mRNA and genomic vaccines. And really, Illumina played a very significant role in that effort.
Fantastic, thank you. And Yvette, can you tell us a little bit more about what you do and provide some color? Because when we're going to talk today about why alumni matter and why this is a topic that's relevant in workforces, it's really good to understand what you do for a living.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thanks so much, Emma. So first, I'd like to share a little bit more about Amedisys. We are the 4th largest home health and hospice company here in the US. We have over 500 care centers across the country. We have over 35,000 caregivers, although that's when I say caregivers, I mean clinicians, but we have more than that when you consider corporate like myself, because we all consider ourselves caregivers. I am the director of TA programs, sourcing and marketing. And when I say that, it's talent acquisition. So I really oversee all programs that help us engage and recruit additional caregivers to join our organization across the country.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, both. Now, you are at very different stages of your alumni journey. One of you is literally just getting cracking, and one of you is well on the way to having a successful and flourishing network, having launched not too long ago. So I wonder if I could ask you both a question. Essentially, why was alumni on your radar? And I'd love to start with Yvette, because it really ties in to a moment that I don't think we could have made up if we tried, but obviously changes in your leadership. Can you tell us a little bit more about the history of why? I know you've been thinking about this for a few years, but why is now the moment?
Yeah, so I joined the company a couple of years ago, and it was a topic of a conversation even then, and had been before I joined the company. And we just kept bringing it forward every time there was a budget review. We said, we know that this is a talent pool that's important to us, and we really want to understand what they're doing and how we can help serve them even after they've left the company. And we kept that conversation going. Come to find out that our current CEO, Paul Kusero, he announced his retirement, and this is a passion project for him and had been for a really long time. We presented it to the board, and he said, as I leave as the CEO, he will remain on the board. He's like, I want to see this project come to fruition. And not only do I want to see it come to fruition, but I'd love to see myself be that first person who signed up and allow other people to understand the importance of staying connected. And so that is how we actually came to get to the point where we can call you and say, yes, we're ready to start a conversation.
Amazing, thank you. I'm looking forward to digging into that a little bit further and how he's going to amplify and talk about this in due course. But Emily, a little bit from you. Why was alumni on your radar? I know definitely a different impetus.
Alumni are on our radar really because of the incredible things they do and how proud they are to work for Illumina. Our alumni are company founders, engineers, inventors, clinicians, pioneers, investors, scientists. And really 6 months ago, we decided to start, this formal network to really give back to them. And our business goal is really to elevate and reinforce our brand. I was pretty inspired by, my alma maters, the Wellesley and Wharton alumni networks. And really, it's because the achievements of the alumni really help lift the institutional brand. And so at Illumina, we thought, well, by honoring and celebrating our alumni achievements, we can activate this network of brand ambassadors. And we all know that branding is very expensive. And so I encourage anyone listening to this webinar that really your alumni can help be an echo chamber for your brand. And just to finish, our alumni are really proud of their time at the company. The stakes in genomics are really high, and really they are extremely proud of their time. They even started a hashtag Illumina Proud, which they use to amplify across social channels. So ultimately, they're helping to drive our brand narrative.
Yeah, fantastic. And yes, I saw that. I saw quite a lot of Twitter activity from people who I think you said weren't really active on social media before. And it's really, it's really interesting because from a marketing perspective, it's just a different channel of people that you presumably have activated. Was that part of the plan? Has that been a surprise?
I'd say it's been a surprise because it's really kind of grown organically. Our network took off in the first month. We met our annual goal. And, it's really because of all the amplification over social. And so, pleasantly surprised. We didn't know what to expect, right? Because we're a genomics company, and this was a first for our industry. And so, we've had amazing, I'd say, success in terms of just members joining and amplifying.
Yeah, fantastic. And congratulations on that. And I guess Yvette's probably listening intently too, thinking, how is this going to go for us, right? You've got, you literally kicked off a matter of weeks ago, even though this has been something you've been talking about for a long time. And Yvette, I mean, the culture of care for both of your businesses is obviously vital for both employees, for alumni, for customers. I know that. Yvette, your business is care. So I wanted to ask a little bit more about how you're hoping that interaction with alumni plays in with the culture of care that you have internally. How are you hoping to maintain that connection? Because, for example, carers are often, in my mind, I think about them quite stretched. They are, people run off the ground, doing an amazing job taking care of people who need their help. How are you hoping that alumni is going to interact with different parts of your business, so the carers all the way through to your head office staff?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. So we've thought through a couple of different options, and hopefully we can take every road available to us. And one of the things we thought about is we do have the biggest population of staff that we have, or alumni that we would be trying to reach, are the caregivers, the clinicians, the LPNs and the RNs. And how do we give back to them? Similar to what Emily was sharing, how do we honor them and give back to them? And we can offer continuous education learning courses so that they can continue to grow their careers even beyond Amedisys. And we want to really understand, what it is they need from us, not just a network and a community, because they have that when they join Amedisys, and even after they leave, there's so many people that stay connected with us and have decided to say, yes, I want to continue to explore opportunities, even from a part-time level, because they care so much about the company and the patients that they're seeing. But we know that there's different opportunities that we can share with them. Like the continuous education, like the networking. We can share with them different opportunities to share the roles that we have open with their networks, and make sure that we can, to Emily's point, amplify our brand even further. And as we continue to grow from an acquisition perspective, there's markets we haven't been in before, but some of our clinicians have moved to those markets. And so we really know that we can spread our brand presence even with the alumni program into areas that we didn't even foresee needing to be in. So we're really excited about that opportunity as well.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yes. And Emily, I heard Illumina referred to as a sort of Harvard MBA of genomics. And, that sounds like a really high bar and a really aspirational place to be. So taking that point of a culture of care being important for your business too, what does a community look like in genomics? Do people move around a great deal? I assume there's a very high bar to get into genomics in terms of experience. I presume, I think you're a pharmacist, or you're a chemist. What does a community look like? And do people move around a lot in genomics? I'm really interested to understand that kind of community you're building. Is it just Illumina, or is it a broader genomics one?
Absolutely right, Emma. It's a broader genomics ecosystem. Our industry is unique in that it does take some subject matter expertise. And so alumni go on to start new companies and often in entirely new applications. So they're often market makers. And so, within our community, we have this incredible ecosystem of, alumni doing amazing things. We've got, a CEO of a company that's focused on pets and understanding genomics and cancer therapies.
Wow.
So, within our industry, it's an attractive industry, as all sort of STEM industries are. But I'd say it really is, when our people move, it's often to go start something new. And we're very sort of proud of them for that, because they really go on to drive the entire industry.
Thank you very much. And indeed, I just want to add that as we usually have a very active Q&A room here. So if anybody wants to post questions, feel free to do it anonymously or lose your name. Do so at any point, and I'll make sure that I field them and we get in as many as possible. Hoping to spend at least half an hour doing that, because I know that we always run out of time. Digging into some more practical points about the beginnings of both of your journeys. So Emily, getting the program off the ground, key stakeholders, who was the real internal champion alongside you for this project? Really like to understand how that started, and perhaps some stories about the launch and early wins.
Sure. So I'd say first, our success is really due to the fact that we have fantastic alumni. And I spent some time talking about what's in it for Illumina in terms of our brand, but we focused on the value that we could deliver to alumni. And our alumni are seeing that value in two ways. First, it's the connections. And second, it's staying close to the company. So our alumni are interested in new connections, obviously business connections, but also nurturing, old relationships. And that was important at this moment in time, especially with the pandemic, where we're all craving those social connections. So our alumni were actually asking for a formal network. And second, our alumni actually have a belief that they can be more successful in their current jobs by staying connected to the company. And I mentioned the founder of the pet DNA company, and he told me, he said, I want to stay connected to Illumina to keep on top of genomics trends and where the space is headed, and my colleagues. These former colleagues could be customers, they could be investors, they could be evangelists. And really, once we locked in the value prop for our alumni, we focused on operationalizing, and getting the network off the ground really came down to time, talent, and tenacity. We had strong executive support, which is why the project, sat with me in the CEO office, and certainly was very supported by our CEO, Francis D'Souza. We have a very talented network head, Ashley Binter, who we hired, and she comes from higher education. We also prioritize the digital experience. Obviously, with COVID, we were all still at home, so we thought that will be really important. And then we worked with a strong external partner, obviously EA, but it wasn't just to build the network, but also on the strategy around the network. And because we focused on that strategy and had a really concentrated effort, we were able to actually launch in under 3 months. And, as I mentioned, we don't have tens of thousands of alums. We have about 8,000. So we didn't know what to expect, but within the first month, we exceeded any industry benchmark and hit our annual goal within the first month. So, what our alumni sort of commented on is they really liked the fact that we were doing it at that time. and also just the power of the digital network. And like I said, the real reason we did this is they are so proud to work for the company, and we always are celebrating their achievements as opposed to Illumina's achievements.
Yeah, fantastic. And ultimately that's what it is, right? And we do this with as you said, we do this with the people we went to college with. We do this with people informally that we used to work with. I certainly do. My mentors, some of my board are all people that I work with in my 20s and my 30s. It makes absolute sense. And you're both examples, by the way, of companies that are moving very fast when you do this and get running. Emily, I'm going to stick with you for a second, then I'm going to dig in with Yvette, because you talked about the value proposition. And I'd love you to share a little bit about that, because I think when people are starting a program, there are challenges for anything new in a large organization. And quite often alumni sits with marketing and comms because it's a sales channel, especially for retailers or people that are selling professional services people. It's a natural fit there. But then of course, and we'll get to Yvette in a second, there's a really clear talent play. This is a huge pool of people who could and should come back to you and are likely to be faster to recruit, don't cost you anything to recruit, and stay longer. We all know the value of Boomerang hires. So I'd love to just understand a little bit about that value prop and where you kind of put that marker in the sand to say, this is where we're going to put it. Was it marketing? Was it employer branding? Was it HR?
I'd say, given the impetus was really to elevate our brand, I'd say the first sort of inception of the network was to focus on the marketing aspect. I'd say the marketeer in me sort of led me to do some VOC work to really guide, the beta launch of the network. And so we interviewed alums to really scope out what is important to you within a network. And for genomics people, it was really about staying on top of industry trends, but also those connections, because like I said, the stakes are really high. And in genomics, you form lifelong relationships. And then I think third, we have a very altruistic alumni organization. So bringing in things like philanthropy, where they might not be getting that at their smaller kind of startup companies, was really important. So once we actually use the alumni as our customers, we were able to really design, a value proposition. And it's a build, right? So like with any network, we didn't have everything launched on day one. But we're always sort of experimenting and collecting VOC to make sure we're really delivering that value to the network.
Yeah, thank you for that. And Yvette, to pick up with you, slightly different story. Very clear sponsor and talent. This has been very HR driven. We know that this is clearly important for employer branding. It's clearly important for building a lifelong relationship. And there are so many elements that are tied into this. Was this just a recruitment play? Is this just a recruitment play, or why and how does this fit particularly with HR for Amedisys?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So it does sit with human capital. Our VP of talent acquisition, Anthony Fleming, is the executive sponsor of the program, but no, it is not just a recruitment play. I want to share that our clinicians care deeply about their patients and one another, and they want to stay connected with their colleagues, or what we like to call them our family members. One of the other things we're doing, which is crazy, simultaneously is launching a first ever campus recruiting program here at Amedisys. We've never recruited right out of schools. And what we've learned is that the students really want to understand what our seasoned clinicians experience and how they can expect to affect change and affect their patients. And so we thought this is a great platform where we can actually intertwine some of that marketing effort, right? We can develop content and stories from some of the alumni who are here, share their stories with some of the incoming nursing first line responders, and say, here's what you can expect to experience when you become a full-fledged RN in hospice or home health. And so we know that that's an opportunity that we have to blend those two programs together. We also recognize that there is a need for us to continue to develop those relationships and share with them what's happening with Amedisys, what changes are happening within the organization at those care centers, because one of the things that Amedisys struggles with is the disconnection, because there are 500 care centers across the country and they are not centralized. And so we are decentralized from that perspective. So you don't always know what's happening at your neighbor's care center. So this also gives us an opportunity to share that information and let clinicians know what's happening at one care center may not be happening with another, and still be able to say, but there's a thread between them all. And what is that thread? Let's share that across the enterprise. And so there's a lot of different reasons why we're launching this program. Did it start with recruitment? Yes, absolutely. Do we hope we'll see some additional hires based on the alumni? Because we do know that that is the best return on investment when we're talking about hires, is bringing in former employees who know the company, they'll know the culture, they know the processes. But ultimately, we're looking at the big picture and how this is going to affect the enterprise moving forward.
Yeah, 100%. And look, I mean, alumni really does capture, I think, the zeitgeist of 2022, because you have the great resignation, the great rehire, a collection of pressures, which involves obviously recruiting and tapping into pools of untapped talent. Makes complete sense. And former employees are obviously one. Yvette, you talked about already recognizing them. I just wonder, before I go back to Emily, do you already welcome boomerangs? Is this a new initiative for you, or what does boomerang hiring look like in your organization?
Yeah, so we do, and we don't do a terrible job with rehires. I mean, we're above the benchmark from an enterprise perspective, but it's a very manual process, and it's very transactional and very reactive. So it's typically when a recruiter has to request a list of boomerangs, rehire eligible employees for a given care center, region, pod, whatever, and then we send out an email. So it's really reactive. It's not a journey that people can go on with us, and we're really looking to expand that effort and say we're not going to treat this as a transaction. It's actually a relationship that we want to develop and cultivate with you. We want to go on this journey with you even after you've left the company, even before. Once you give notice, let's sign you up for the alumni program and make sure that we're sharing everything we want to do for you as an alumni. So yeah, while we did have a boomerang hire process in place at the recruiter level, this is really going to elevate the work that we're doing across the enterprise, automate the processes, and really create a journey and relationship building opportunities for us and our clinicians.
Fantastic. And thanks by just doesn't make sense in general with anything. I just think about all the investments we'll make in every corner of our business, and people. We spend so much money recruiting people, retaining people, upskilling people, and then we say thanks bye, and it kind of just falls off a cliff. It's just if nothing else, from a selfish and capitalist perspective, it just isn't a great way to treat an asset that you have invested so much in. So I think the theme obviously makes complete sense. Emily, is hiring being impacted? Is there any growth there?
Yes, and I'll talk about that.
You're 6 months in, by the way. Let's just tell everybody you're only 6 months in.
Well, we are a growth company, so we're hiring, a ton. But before I talk about that, I just want to talk about our culture of care, really at the company. Last year was really unique, right, with the pandemic, and we really thought we need to extend the culture of care that we have at Illumina to, our alumni, and sort of nurturing a relationship with them. So the minute they're hired, they're an Illumina alumni. And as I mentioned before, within our industry, like I said, folks go on and, do incredible things. And so we are actually seeing, job referrals increase. And so, we're seeing alumni share sort of jobs that are hard to fill, but also we are seeing more applicants come in, and they'll, say that they heard about it through the alumni network. I think finally, our industry really needs folks that may have not thought about a career in genomics, right? We need data scientists. We need AI experts. Ashley Binter, our alumni head, probably never thought she'd work at a genomics company. So we are starting to see sort of that cross-pollination and alumni sort of sharing, those harder to find jobs. And I think finally, we have a strong intern program. And so certainly, of course, we have boomerang targets from that program. So we always welcome boomerangs, but we've seen more of the benefit in the referrals going up for jobs.
Yeah, and I guess, when you say you need folks who'd not really thought of coming back to you, with alumni, they're passive candidates. They're ones who aren't necessarily there for the job. They hadn't necessarily thought about coming back. In life, it's, everything's competitive. Social media, recruiting, if you can plant a seed with people, make things easier for people, make there a reason to continue to stay connected, and either refer somebody they know will come back themselves, it makes complete sense. And I think also, and possibly this works for you, Yvette, too. That's for people who might have been out the workforce for some time. And we have a lot of people that focus on women returners, in-home carers, veterans, people who haven't typically been involved in a working environment for some time. And I think can be quite imposing and intimidating to apply for a job online if you don't feel necessarily that you have all the skills. People might be reticent to do that, and this is an easier way to do that. Do you have do you find that, Yvette? Do you have in your Boomerang culture that?
Yes, absolutely. And not only that, like you think about the military spouses of people who have to constantly move. They feel like they can't apply for a role because they could be moving to follow their spouse who's an active military member. So there's a lot of opportunity. And I love what Emily said about the job referrals and the intern program and things like that, because that is something that we're thinking about. And Emily, what you're up against, we're up against. Nurses who go to school do not think about home health and hospice as where they end up. They think hospitals, medical centers, they think everything but home health and hospice. So this is a really great opportunity for us to continuously build content to share with them and educate them on our industry and magnify what we're doing and how we're changing the face of aging in place, aging at home. Because we know that 7 out of 10 Americans would rather die in their home than in a hospital. And so if we know that, then that means hospice nurses are going to be needed even more and more, because more Americans are taking that health and those decisions into their own hands instead of leaving it back up to the physicians. So yeah, we're really looking forward to using Enterprise Alumni even beyond the alumni and looking for the future of nursing in our industry.
And I guess I was going to ask you both a question about the take up and how you've been advocating for alumni internally. I might kick off with Yvette. You've got a CEO that's leaving in the not too distant future. You've got a new leader coming in. I mean, how are you planting the seeds of telling people internally? Because, and we'll get to Emily, your employees are great advocates for the initiating of the alumni network because everyone knows someone who left. How are you going to be sharing the story of alumni before your CEO leaves, given there's so little time?
Yeah, so from our perspective, we've decided that what I didn't know was that the upcoming CEO actually wanted this passion project just as much as Paul did. And so he is going to be taking this on as his passion project. And so while Paul is going to be our first official alumni to sign in, this isn't going to be his passion project. So we're really going to be using his departure and the new incoming CEO and say, this is a really important, because it's about the future and not so much the past. Like the alumni, yes, there are previous family members, but we're really thinking about the future and the change we want to see happen within the organization. So we will be putting together a marketing plan using Paul's departure that helps kind of magnify and spread the word about what we're doing, how we're doing it, why it's important. We are putting together we are doing some VOC work internally to see what would be important to them. What do they want to see our internal employees today, and build off of that so that we can make sure that when we send out all our marketing materials that we're hitting the right buttons and we're sending things that resonate with the population.
Yeah, and that's so, I mean, that authenticity in the message from your CEO is incredible. He truly is advocating something that is utterly relevant to him because he's on his way out and he wants to stay in touch. And how is that possible in an organization with so many people like yourselves? And I tell you what's also super interesting about both of you, which sort of prompted me to think about putting you together. You both work at such large NASDAQ leaders, and yet it is a CEO initiative for you both. I mean, the CEO's office is typically one that's hounded. There's a lot of projects to get on the radar. And there's personal connection from you both. I mean, perhaps you can talk to Emily, perhaps you can share a little bit about that, because I know how this became an important branding exercise, but how on earth did your CEO get this on his agenda?
Well, I'd say first, organizations that are leaders in their industry all have that one common factor, and they embrace their people. And Francis, D'Souza truly believes that. So he really wanted to extend the culture of care and beyond just our employees. So we were lucky that we also had that CEO support. I'd say Francis has been a proud member of the Microsoft Alumni Network, which probably was one of the first corporate networks. And so he's derives great value from it. And that really helped us sort of get the CEO buy-in. And as you know, the first sale is the internal sale. So we also worked on explaining really what it was to our internal employees, because we of course want to make sure that they're sharing, these are their friends joining this network. And so it was important to us to explain to our employees, the why, the how, and the what for the alumni network.
Yeah, and how did this resonate when you launched, Emily? And it might be interesting one for Yvette to hear, right? Because we always, we have a playbook at Enterprise Alumni. We work with all of our customers depending on the nuances and the sponsor and the department that it sits in. But we always, without doubt, say that an extremely powerful way to kind of create a tidal wave when you launch is an internal message from the CEO to all the employees saying, this is what we're doing. Please tell people that have left. And it really does promote those signups. What was the reception like when you went to the wider community beyond those people that you'd obviously advocated alumni with and on senior boards?
I mean, honestly, people internally said, oh, this is super cool. It's great branding and what a great network we're building. And so, once Frances sort of helped launch and push it, people were really receptive to it. The questions that we got were mostly around timing. Because of course, everyone always has 25 different priorities, but we took the time to explain how the network would benefit, the company in terms of lifting up our brand, but also driving, those job referrals. And by the end of those discussions, people really understood that this concept of we are more together, our alumni and our employees are driving the genomics revolution. And this concept of if we all work together, the whole industry rises is important to us because our technologies, can be life-saving and have an impact on, patients.
Yeah, and thank you. I mean, you just touched on priorities and a question really and a point with Yvette. Sometimes alumni feels harder to get to the top of the list. We know that, when in fact it impacts every single department, from finance to marketing to HR to all the corners. There's a way that your former employees impact. What were some of the challenges that you had to get this done? And if you had to think about the process again, is there anything that you would do differently internally, which might be interesting for those people joining us and listening in?
Yeah, so I think the first, obviously, it's always going to be budget. It's always, and what priority comes first, right? So that's always the first thing. And because everyone's got their own list, every leader, every executive sponsor will go to their leadership meeting and say, well, these are the top 3 things I need. So to battle that is probably the first thing. And but I think what we did was we created a really nice business plan on how it was going to affect not just the talent acquisition team because of the hires, but how it was going to affect our brand, the future of clinicians coming into this industry. So not only our brand, but the industry brand. So home health and hospice, and how we could help shape what that's going to look like. The fact that it was on Paul's mind, and I think he knew about his departure long before we probably did, which is probably why it was on his mind, helped us a great deal to make it a priority. But yeah, I think it was just coming up with that solid business plan about not only how is it going to affect the executive sponsors team, but the human capital team, the marketing team, the tech team, and the finance team too, because the finance team is the one who says, yay or nay. So how do we say this is the return on investment, and how do we share that in the best terms, right? So we know that this is going to cost us X, how soon before we see the investment returned? And so we put together that solid business case, and I think that there was no one who could say it didn't make complete sense.
Yeah, I think, look, it always resonates for a lot of reasons, but as you say, it's that priority battle. We've got some, I've got a lot more questions, but we've got some from people online, which I want to make sure that we get through. So going to kick off with one here to both the guests. And I think, Emily, you've got a perspective of someone that's launched, and Yvette, this is probably some things that are on your mind and areas where we'll certainly be doing a lot of guiding you. So I guess the nuance of the question for Emily is, how did you reach out to alumni and build awareness for them to join? Do you have some tips and tricks for people listening? And then I think a slightly different question for Yvette, given she hasn't done the work yet, so it'd be unfair to ask her that.
Right. So, first off, to collect the VOC, we had a list of sort of the friendlies, the alumni luminaries, and we reached out to them. And I think that's really important to get sort of the movers and the shakers and your sort of VIPs behind the network, right? Because they're the ones with these massive, prolific social channels. So I think that was first. I think second, we didn't do a ton of marketing. What happened in the beginning is the social organic sharing of the network took off. We had people hear about it from, alumni sharing and retweeting and all of that. So I think making sure you give, when you launch your alumni, the social posts that they can share is really important. And then of course, there's all sorts of, getting internal lists of leavers so that you can make sure you're keeping in touch with them, I think was really third for us.
Yeah, and that's something that I know is on Yvette's mind and some of her colleagues at Amedisys, which is, it's ultimately this becomes part of offboarding, right? Can't do everything on day one immediately, but how do you make sure that when people are leaving, it's not a leaky bucket, essentially? Every time someone leaves, it's almost a wasted opportunity. I guess we've got a second question here, which is, how do you, it's a very specific question, which is how do you ensure that the alumni doesn't become an old boys club? And I think probably the broader question for you both actually here is how do you ensure that you have different collections of alumni in here? Not just head office, not just carers, not just people who are really active in 2 or 3 of your largest care homes where they already all stay in touch and there's a really booming staff notice board and offline drinks that are arranged once a year, informal communities. Yvette, have you been giving any thought to how you're going to be able to communicate with different groups of people on the ground and people in head office, for example?
Yeah, so we if you think about clinicians or the healthcare space, it's a very diverse community. It'd be really hard to make anything an old boys club in the healthcare space these days. It's just it's extremely diverse. And so we've thought about where we're going to be reaching out. We are going to be using social. We're going to be using our internal resources as well, like Yammer and Teams, to make sure that we're communicating with everyone. We're not going to limit ourselves to any one region. We are a US-based company with 500 care centers across the country. And even in areas where we don't have care centers, we're going to make sure that we're spreading the word, because like I said, some of our alumni have moved to markets we're not in, but that doesn't mean that we don't want them a part of our alumni. And we don't want to put our brand there and plant a flag and say, you're as important to us when you lived in the Chicagoland area, now that you live in, South Dakota. So we want to make sure that we're spreading that word across every medium we can and not limit ourselves to just where our major populations with regard to job, family, or staff have been historically speaking.
Yeah, and of course, I think the thing that I notice at scale is you don't just need the people you want to recruit back or just need the people that are active on social, right? A community is everybody. And I think alumni by its very nature is inclusive. And I think about some of our retailers and some of the, my first job was in McDonald's when I was 16. I happened to be a very diligent employee, but what if at 17, I had have been at school, I wasn't totally responsible, I didn't really understand how to behave at work, and I just didn't turn up one day, and then I never went back because I was too embarrassed. We hear this a lot about from our retailers, that they have young staff, school staff who just disappear and that's it. And are they bad leavers? And I think the point about bad leavers, especially early on in the journey, if someone hasn't done anything actively challenging, is a 17-year-old or a 22-year-old that's just out of college and is just finding their way in the world. It's potentially going to be a great source of support, advocacy, evangelism, or possibly rehire at 30 or at 40 or at 50 or even at 60, right? The working journey is so long. So I think it's really interesting to think about what alumni means. And Emily, perhaps a question from you. You have genomics experts, and then you've got loads of operations staff. You've got a broad spectrum too. How are you, and I've seen on Twitter as well, by the way, your wonderful wine event you had recently, how are you engaging with different types of people that have different types of interests?
Mm-hmm. Well, for us, it's all about, of course, the company's mission, and we're lucky in that, we are always focused on diversity, and half of our leadership team is women. But for us, it's really about the content, making sure within the network, you're always serving content that appeals, right? So we're very cognizant that we don't want this just to be a network for, the CEOs that have 35 years of experience. So we will tailor our content to, the younger leavers, right? Earlier in career, and making sure they're getting value out of the network. And so always just with your content plan, lining it up and being as inclusive as you can. For this month, it's Black History Month. So when we launched our alumni spotlights, we made sure we linked the content to that. And it's also Rare Disease Month in our space. And so, we linked articles and stories from alumni working in the rare disease space.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that. And I wonder, Emily, to go to you and then back to Yvette, do you have some advice for Yvette? And in fact, for a lot of the people that are listening in about the first couple of months of alumni? Because obviously it was a new effort for you. You oversaw it, and I know you've got a great team that are supporting you with that. Any thoughts and pearls of wisdom?
Right. Well, I'd say, people follow people. So find those 10 or 20 lighthouse alumni. They're the ones with the connections, and if they join, share, they will bring in their own network. So that's really important. I'd say secondly, it's just focus on having good content. And it doesn't require internal lifting, right? Because a lot of times you launch the network and it's actually alumni that create the content. So as a marketing person, we all know creating content's tough. And so you can collect stories. And I think third, make sure you espouse the value prop for alumni, right? Because at first they always wonder, why are you doing this? Is it a recruiting tool? What's this about? But once you sort of share the value of the network and make it about them, it can really take off that way.
Fantastic. And Yvette, what are you hoping for the first year? I mean, you've got some goals and ambitions that are being set even as we speak. We've obviously got the launch pad of your CEO that's going to talk to everybody about this. Is there an internal goal? What is your hope? Because really, from our perspective, we know that the first thing in year one that really matters is just building the network and cadence of communications, right? You've got to get people used to expecting a quarterly newsletter, some alumni stories, which everybody likes, all the way from sort of senior corporate through to staff on the ground. What are you hoping to see in the first year?
Well, obviously, we're hoping to see an alumni network itself with thousands of people
We're responsible
in it.
for that bit. We could do the alumni network bit, and we can help you with everything else. And that bit should be in hand.
We're hoping to see in the first year at a minimum 1,000 alumni engaged, accepting the content, sharing their content with us, and then for the future, really, I mean, obviously, depending on who you ask here, it is going to be a recruiting tool for some people. I'm hoping it shapes our industry. We will be the first home health and hospice company to create a formal alumni program here in the US, and we're really excited about that. We want to be that pioneer. We don't want to wait for someone else to do it, but we're hoping that we can educate incoming nurses about our industry and really share with them how they can impact patients in the safest place that they can be, which is their homes. And so that's long-term goal is I want to see this shape the industry. I want to see how the content being built from this program can really help educate new nurses or student nurses to really be more interested in learning about us and how to join this kind of an organization. So that's the long-term goal from what we can see here. But yeah, we're looking, hopefully that first year is 1,000 engaged alumni who are proud to engage with us, to share with us, and to share jobs and their stories with us and where they are today.
Fantastic. Yes, indeed. And I think we share the same goal, and we're looking forward to seeing that success. I guess a question for you both, I think, to final one from me, and then make sure that we include the ones that are from our guests that are joining us. Talent now comes in many forms. You've got the traditional full-time, you've got part-time, you've got contingent and contract workers. Sometimes you have interns, you have grads, you have people that are only at the company for 6 weeks. Maybe they don't really understand Amedisys and Illumina because they've been on a placement. I'd love to ask you both, I suppose, Emily, what have you considered to be alumni? It's a question we get a lot. And Yvette, is this something you've been thinking about? Who should you include? Emily, from you, what is an alumni? Which is really a question to start off with, but one kind of fits now.
Great question. And we did have, that discussion. I'd say at first pass, we open it up to our full-time employees that have been at the company 6 months or longer. And that's typically the folks that, apply to join. We actually made, the decision to also open it up to internal employees, which is not always done because, a lot of alumni networks, you want to keep it authentic. So we do have, probably 5% of the network is actually currently at Illumina. But I see those folks as a benefit because they're helping sort of elevate the brand on the network.
Thank you. And Yvette, to you, I mean, you must have a huge contingent labor force, people that come and go part-time. Have you thought about any boundaries? Are there boundaries about what you will be considering in alumni?
No, there aren't going to be, because that would just hinder our ability to reach the masses. And we have so many nurses for their own reasons who have been full-time, who have to go to part-time status. And we offer part-time benefits for those employees. So why wouldn't we offer them the opportunity to join our alumni group? So yeah, we are not going to impede our own success there. We are going to allow everyone who has been on an Amedisys payroll to join the alumni group. And Emily, we actually are considering that same 5% kind of balance of internal employees too, to help just voice what we're doing and share the content.
Yeah, ultimately, alumni are actually an internal workforce. They're not an external work. They're not people that don't know you. They're not people that never had any interaction with you. So that blending of people makes complete sense. And in many ways, I know, and we've talked about this with both of you, that it makes sense to have a place in the talent journey to offboard people. It's just natural. We've got, so much technology that the total workforce management journey and strategy that all companies have that technologizes every single step of the way, and it makes sense to have people to offboard. But actually, when people onboard, is a day that they're truly excited about the company. They want to be part of a community. So, there's no reason to limit it to just people that have left. That makes complete sense. Emily, do you have any plans to extend? How did you choose that 5%?
Mm-hmm. Well, we opened it up, and I see that's the joiners that we got from our employee base. I think secondly, we of course want to be as inclusive as possible, and we landed on sort of the 6-month full-time because our business case was about the brand, and so our view was, well, that's really how you're going to espouse the brand, is that you've been here 6 months. But like I said, it's a journey, and with anything, that could change. That's what I love about, having that online portal, is that, you can decide, and with digital, you can make a change overnight.
Yeah, and ultimately this is becoming slowly embedded in your culture in the same way that other things are. At some point soon, you won't remember not having an alumni community. Obviously, I'm a huge advocate for alumni in general, but it just feels very much natural part of the journey and a people journey. I've got a question for Emily, and then one for Yvette, and then I think we probably have to sort of slightly down tools and take this information away, and thank you for it. Emily, what does your membership sign up look like? Do you have any ways that you give people some sort of membership moment, a card? Do they receive anything?
Yes, so I say most of our active, membership is driven through LinkedIn, which is great because we have that automated registration process. In the beginning, for the first sort of joiners, we did give them some Illumina swag, which, we support because this is a branding play for us. And then, of course, we do regular posts and emails to join the network. And so that really drove up our membership. And like I said, it's the content. So if we have a great article on an illuminary in oncology doing amazing things, we will push it over social channels, but always make sure to read it. You obviously have to join the network. So back to those kind of first principle marketing practices, but that's really how we've managed our membership.
Yeah, and that came from the Nike 6453 alumni network. So their swag is probably infinitesimally easier to assemble. But Amedisys, Yvette, I wonder if you've been thinking about that too. So you're right at the beginning of this journey, and Illumina have obviously got swag. I don't know what that is. I haven't seen any of it. I definitely need to change that. But Yvette, when you think about how to pull people into the community, is there anything that you're thinking of doing in that regard? Have you got a sort of launch group of people that are particularly interested, that already communicate with each other?
Yeah, we do. And one of the things that, and we did some VOC work early on too, and one of the things that they're really interested is in that continuous learning opportunity, because nurses do have to get their CEDs regularly. And so we want to make sure we give them that opportunity, and they can, how better to come back to Amedisys, people they know, because we've developed a lot of content ourselves that is accredited so that we can in fact share that. So that's one of the things that we're going to be offering to alumni too, so they don't have to seek it out anywhere else.
Brilliant, thank you. And Emily, a departing question for you. So you're 6 months in, I think it is that right?
Yes.
Any surprises or anything in particular that you hadn't expected from your alumni community, or?
Well, hindsight is always 2020, and I'd say we wished we had done this 5 years ago. Illumina,
Oh, I like that.
Amazing media coverage over the last 2 years. We sort of got hot in the media, and so we had wished that we had had this network in place. I think, like anything, you can always sort of drive continuous improvement. And so, kind of going forward, we want to make, 2 membership pushes a year and really link, killer content, across the company to our alumni. So those are my pearls of wisdom, but I think it comes down to making sure that folks understand, your mission and why you're doing it. And then also just, put sort of a small team around it to get it up and running, and sort of just commit, and having that CEO buy-in was really helpful for us.
Thank you for that. And Yvette, I think a question that's slightly different because you're just at the early stage, but Emily was talking about getting a team together to get it up and running. Do you have some advice for anyone that is thinking about starting an alumni network a couple months behind you, that knows they want to do this? What's it look like for you internally? Because you've literally just assembled the task force.
We did, and I would say don't go it alone. So you try to do it alone because it hasn't gotten buy-in from everyone yet, and so you're trying to project manage everything while you're keeping a full-time job, and it's just going to be difficult. So, but if you have that right business case, you assemble the right team members, get them in, and just meet regularly to understand what the progress is, where the roadblocks are happening, and make friends with everyone. That's one thing, like the IT people. Make sure that they know your name so that when you come calling, nothing's going to be pushed back or being asked to put a ticket in. No, I think it's just putting together the small team, like Emily said, because everyone's got a full-time job, and this is an addition to, right? This is an add-on that we're bringing on. And so put that small team together, assign the work, put a project manager if you can on it, or be the project manager, and make sure the tasks are lined up and that you're meeting the deadlines. And that's what we're doing right now. So we're really excited about it.
Well, I guess making friends with everyone is always a good piece of advice, especially those people that you need most of all. And I guess that's what alumni is, right? It's staying friends with everybody, because you don't need to just make them, but they need to remember you. So, but that weaves in perfectly, and it allows me to say thank you both very much for sharing a little bit about your journeys. Obviously, it's slightly different stages, but I think people really are. Your businesses are helping people so directly that I thought it was a perfect match. Thank you for all of the questions. There are a couple that we didn't get through that I've taken note of. I know who asked them, and we'll follow up with you. And wish you all a great rest of afternoon or day, depending on what time zone you're in. Thank you very much. Yvette, Emily, goodbye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.